The hard thing about preparing a 10-minute teaching for this particular Saturday is that if you open up your Gospels, there's pretty much nothing there to work with. There's just a gaping space between two of the most studied and most widely observed days in all of history, Good Friday on the one side and Easter Sunday on the other. For most of my life, actually, this was just a day of waiting. We've gone through the pain of crucifixion yesterday, and we're just holding out until tomorrow, where we can celebrate with sunrise and chocolate eggs. But that gets me to thinking about those first followers of Jesus, James and Mary Magdalene and Peter. They weren't waiting on this day 2,000 years ago. For them, there was nothing to wait for. 3 years earlier, they left their homes and their lives, and they'd staked their entire futures on the belief that Jesus, this charismatic, prophetic visionary, actually was their promised Messiah. So what kind of despair sets in when the one who is not just the leader of your movement, but is your longed-for national Messiah, is pronounced guilty by your religious authorities and put to death on a Roman cross? If God's Messiah is killed on a cross, then you can stake your life on one thing. He is definitely not God's Messiah. And if he's not, then what kind of idiot am I to have been following him all this time? No, this Saturday is not about waiting. It's about fear and humiliation and losing your purpose in life. It's the day after you shutter your business, or bury your child, or lose your scholarship, or sign your divorce papers. In one form or another, all of us know something of Saturday. I work in an accounting office, where as I sit here, over 50% of the small businesses that I service are wondering if they're even going to be around in June. I think you would agree that week after week of this pandemic, my friends, right now, we're living in Saturday. In John Ortberg's book, Who Is This Man?, he writes, this odd day raises a question. Why is there a Saturday? It doesn't seem to further the storyline at all. We might expect that if Jesus was going to be crucified and then resurrected, that God would just get on with it. It seems strange for God to spread two events over 3 days. Ortberg goes on to point out how the Bible is filled with these third-day stories, like Joseph's brothers get imprisoned but aren't released until the third day, or Esther needs to plead the cause of her nation, Israel, before the Persian king, but she doesn't get an audience until the third day. The first day is filled with trouble. The third day brings deliverance, but that second day, it's just the space in between the two, where the trouble just sits there, and it is so hard. Ortberg says that the problem with third-day stories is that you don't know it's a third-day story until the third day. Boy, does he have that right. What might be God's purpose in this second day, that excruciating day in which you hope for the third day to get here, but it's just so hard to keep believing that it will? That second day has got to have a reason. And if I look back at the periods in my life when I'm sitting in that second day, they actually line up pretty well with the periods in my life where I experienced the most intense spiritual growth. If you're like me, I'm far less likely to lean into God when things are going well. But when I'm scraping the bottom of my own ability to hold it all together, I'm more inclined to pray, to try and discover just what the heck God might be up to. And I might even be open to new things he might be doing. I wonder if this is what Jesus was talking about in his Sermon on the Mount in Matthew, when he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." It's crazy to consider that when your heart is broken, when your spirit fractured, when your money gone, that you are actually blessed. But Jesus says that you are. Maybe it's because you might find yourself so much more open to what God might have to teach you about who he truly is and what he truly cares about. I also find that some people of the second day become really good at lament. I don't mean complaint, because that's just annoying. I'm talking about the ability to speak honestly and boldly with God about your loss, to direct and even to spew your frustration and confusion and pain skyward and call him to act. A lot of the Psalms were composed by second day people. There's a whole group that are actually called the Psalms of Lament. And Psalm 13 is a really good one. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer me, Lord my God. How long, O Lord, will this pandemic go on? How long will doctors and nurses and scribes fear their own workplace? How long until we can open the doors of our churches again? How long until we can embrace our elderly parents again? Look on us and answer us, O Lord our God. This is the language of lament, and it demonstrates the strength of the bond between God and the writer. The sufferer is way beyond politeness or formality with God. Look on me and answer me, he cries. These faithful Saturday people are audacious and raw and unafraid to wrestle with God. They are learning how to cling to him more tightly, to bring him closer, and to trust that he hasn't abandoned them, even though it feels like he has. Did you know there's actually a whole book in the Bible called Lamentations? I'm not going to lie, it's a really dark read, because the prophet Jeremiah writes it fresh after the destruction of Jerusalem, where most of his people were slaughtered, about 6 centuries before Jesus. Listen to what he says in chapter 3. I have been deprived of peace. I have forgotten what prosperity is. So I say, my splendor is gone, and all that I had hoped for from the Lord. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Are we not feeling these same things, church? Are we not with Jeremiah sitting in our second day? But the lesson of Silent Saturday is that this isn't the end of the story. There is absolutely, most definitely, undoubtedly, a third day coming. It might be a long time coming, but it is where the story is headed. This reality is encapsulated for me in a single word that makes my heart lift whenever I encounter it in the Bible. It's full of promise and hope, and it proclaims that things are not going to stay this way forever. I think it's my favorite word. Yet. God, my life is falling apart around me. Yet. God, I have to cancel my daughter's wedding and I've lost a ton of money. Yet. God, my mom isn't breathing so well. Yet. Jeremiah's yet goes like this. Yet. This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, and therefore I will wait for him. We are indeed in the Saturday space today, and like those first disciples, we are grieving. But they didn't know what we know. They didn't know that their third day was just around the corner. Resurrection Sunday was coming, and it makes all the difference. As Paul told his friends, the Thessalonians, grieve, but don't grieve like those who have no hope. Because of tomorrow, because of Sunday, we can trust that God is unfolding a third-day story for us and with us and in us. Yesterday, we lost everything. Today, it just hurts. Yet, who knows how our faithful and good God may bring tomorrow's resurrection.
So thanks for coming along on this short journey into the Bible text. I hope you've noticed something new in the landscape, or maybe even a fresh way to view territory that you've covered many times before. Whatever the case, it's good to have you along for the trip. You never know what we might discover as we crack open this fascinating text together.